Yesterday's Brazil vs Japan match was not just another knockout game. It was a warning, a rescue mission, and a tactical lesson all in one. Brazil won 2-1 at Houston Stadium and moved into the last 16 of the 2026 World Cup. But the story of the match was far more complicated than the scoreline suggests. Japan were brave, organized, aggressive, and tactically disciplined for long periods, while Brazil looked uncomfortable, slow, and predictable in the first half. But after halftime, Carlo Ancelotti changed the structure, increased the width, and Brazil found a way back through Casemiro before Gabriel Martinelli scored a dramatic 95th minute winner. On paper, Brazil deserved the win. They had 19 shots, created 1.72 expected goals, and restricted Japan to only 5 attempts and 0.23 expected goals. But tactically, this game showed both the strengths and the weaknesses of Ancelotti's Brazil. The first major theme of the match was Japan's excellent first half plan. Japan defended in a compact 5-4-1 shape, and that system caused Brazil huge problems. Their back five gave them numerical security against Brazil's forward line, while the midfield four stayed narrow enough to block central passing lanes. Brazil had plenty of talent on the pitch, but in the first half, they struggled to find dangerous spaces between the lines. Vinícius Jr., who had been one of Brazil's biggest threats in the tournament, was especially frustrated. Japan did not allow him to receive the ball freely in the wide channel and run at defenders. Instead, they positioned Doan and Takehiro Tomiyasu in a way that allowed them to share responsibility. When Vinícius drifted wide, one player could jump out to press him while the other covered the space behind. This prevented Vinícius from isolating defenders 1v1, which is usually one of Brazil's most dangerous weapons. Brazil's first half issue was not just about Vinícius being marked, it was about the whole attacking structure lacking depth and width at the right moments. Brazil often wanted to play through technical combinations, but Japan's compactness made the central areas crowded. Matheus Cunha had an early effort saved by Suzuki, and Bruno Guimarães curled one just wide after a corner routine, but after that Brazil became too reliant on shots from distance. The most telling statistic was that Brazil failed to have a first half shot on target from inside the box for the first time in a World Cup match since their 2018 quarter-final defeat to Belgium. That tells us Japan were not simply lucky. Their defensive structure forced Brazil into low-quality attacking situations. Japan's goal in the 29th minute perfectly reflected their tactical bravery and physical intensity. The move started with pressure and disruption. Japan were not sitting passively in a low block. They chose moments to press higher, forcing Brazil into rushed decisions. Danilo's loose pass was intercepted by Sano, and once Sano won the ball, he drove directly through the space. Casemiro, already on a booking and not as quick across the ground as he once was, could not stop the run. Sano went past him too easily and finished brilliantly from the edge of the box into the bottom left corner. From Japan's point of view, this was exactly the kind of goal their game plan was built to create: win the ball in a dangerous transition moment, attack Brazil before they can reset, and punish the aging legs in Brazil's defensive and midfield unit. That aging profile is an important point in the tactical review. Brazil's starting 11 had an average age of 29 years and 245 days, their oldest for a World Cup knockout match since 2006. In defense, Gabriel Magalhães was the youngest starting defender at 28, alongside veterans like Danilo, Marquinhos, and Douglas Santos. Casemiro, at 34, remains a huge presence, but Japan showed that Brazil can be vulnerable when opponents increase the tempo and attack in transition. In the first half, Brazil's midfield did not always protect the defense well, and Japan's energy made Brazil look leggy. This is one of the biggest questions for Ancelotti going forward. Can Brazil control knockout matches against faster, more aggressive teams, or will they continue to rely on moments of individual quality? At halftime, Ancelotti made the key tactical decision of the game. Lucas Paqueta went off injured and Endrick came on. On the surface, replacing a midfielder with a forward looked risky because Brazil had already been overrun at times. But the change effectively pushed Brazil towards a more aggressive 4-4 shape. The important part was not just the extra forward, it was the way Brazil stretched the pitch. Vinícius Jr. and Ryan stayed wider closer to the touchlines, which forced Japan's defensive block to cover more horizontal space. In the first half, Japan could stay compact and suffocate Brazil centrally. In the second half, Brazil made the pitch bigger. That created crossing opportunities, opened lanes for runs, and reduced the effectiveness of Japan's pressing traps. Brazil's second half improvement was immediate. They started attacking with more urgency and created two big chances soon after the restart. Zion Suzuki made an excellent save from a close-range Bruno Guimarães header, and then Takehiro Tomiyasu somehow blocked Casemiro's effort on the line. These moments were important because they showed that Brazil had changed the nature of the match. In the first half, Japan were comfortable defending shots from distance. In the second half, Brazil were getting bodies into the box, forcing Japan to defend their own 6-yard area and creating chaos. That is often what knockout football becomes. Not just perfect patterns of play, but pressure, territory, second balls, and repeated deliveries into dangerous zones. The equalizer came in the 56th minute, and it highlighted both Brazil's adjustment and Casemiro's enduring value. Gabriel Magalhaes delivered the ball to the back post, and Casemiro arrived to head it in. This was not a random goal. Casemiro has become a major aerial threat, and he scored 8 headed goals for Manchester United in the 2025 to 2026 season, more than any other Premier League player in all competitions. For Brazil, 5 of his 10 international goals have now been headers. At 34 years and 126 days, he also became Brazil's second oldest World Cup goalscorer, behind only Bebeto in 1998. So while Japan exposed Casemiro's lack of recovery speed in the first half, Brazil benefited from his experience, timing, and aerial power in the second. After the equalizer, the game became more open, and that suited Brazil's individual attackers. Vinícius Jr. began to receive the ball in more traditional wide areas, where he could face defenders and attack them directly. His best moment came shortly after the equalizer, when he produced a brilliant dribble, beat defenders with quick changes of direction, and poked a shot towards the far post. Suzuki made another outstanding save, just getting enough on the ball to tip it onto the post. This was one of the clearest examples of how Brazil's tactical tweak helped their star player. In the first half, Vinícius was crowded and forced into uncomfortable zones. In the second half, he had space to run, and once he started running at Japan, the whole defensive structure looked less secure. Japan deserved huge credit for staying in the match. Suzuki was excellent, Tomiyasu made vital interventions, and their defensive discipline kept them close to extra time. But the physical and mental demands of defending against Brazil's pressure eventually told. Japan's shape had been very strong for most of the game. But late in knockout matches, one mistake can destroy everything. That moment arrived in stoppage time. Ao Tanka lost possession near the edge of Japan's own box. Ryan reacted quickly. Bruno Guimarães showed composure to find the right pass, and Gabriel Martinelli finished from a central position, beating Suzuki and clipping the ball in off the right-hand post. The goal came in the 95th minute, making it one of the latest winning goals in a World Cup knockout match, excluding extra time, since records began in 1966. Martinelli's role is tactically interesting. For Arsenal, he is usually thought of as a wide forward, someone who attacks from the left and runs behind fullbacks. But when Ancelotti introduced him, Martinelli often positioned himself more centrally. That was crucial. Brazil were putting more crosses and cutbacks into the box, and Martinelli's central positioning meant he was available for the decisive final touch. This was not just a lucky substitution. It was a coach understanding the type of game Brazil were now playing and bringing on a player who could attack spaces inside the penalty area. Martinelli has built a reputation for scoring important goals at club level, and in this match, he transferred that big moment instinct to the World Cup stage. Bruno Guimarães also deserves special attention. He finished with 4 chances created, the most for Brazil in the match, and he now has 4 assists at this World Cup. Only Pelé, with 6 assists in 1970, has recorded more assists for Brazil in a single World Cup since records began. Bruno's importance is not just in the final pass. He gives Brazil control, rhythm, and verticality. In the first half, he struggled like the rest of the midfield because Japan's structure was so effective. But once Brazil stretched the pitch in the second half, Bruno had more room to receive, turn, and connect the attack. His pass for Martinelli's winner was calm and perfectly timed, which is exactly what Brazil needed in a high-pressure moment. From Japan's perspective, this defeat will be painful because they were so close to another historic step. Japan have now played 5 knockout stage matches at the World Cup without progressing, the most by any nation, without ever advancing. But this was not a passive or fearful performance. They showed tactical maturity, physical intensity, and real belief. Their first half display was one of the clearest examples of how to trouble Brazil, defend compactly, press at the right moments, deny Vinícius space, and attack Brazil's older players in transition. The problem was sustainability. Against Brazil, it is not enough to execute the plan for 45 or even 80 minutes. You have to survive waves of pressure, individual brilliance, and late substitutions. Japan almost did it, but almost is not enough in knockout football. For Brazil, the conclusion is mixed. The positive side is obvious. They survived, they showed character, and Ancelotti's halftime adjustment worked. Brazil came from behind in a World Cup match they were in danger of losing, and that kind of comeback can build belief. They also created enough chances to justify the victory, with 19 shots and 1.72 expected goals, compared to Japan's 0.23. But the warning signs are equally clear. Brazil were poor in the first half, too narrow in attack, vulnerable in midfield transitions, and dependent on second-half urgency to rescue the game. Against stronger opponents, they may not get away with such a slow start. The biggest tactical lesson from this match is that Brazil are at their best when they use the full width of the pitch and create isolation opportunities for their wingers. When Vinícius and Doan stayed wide, Japan's defensive block had to stretch, and that opened crossing lanes and central spaces. When Brazil played too narrow, Japan controlled the zones and forced them into harmless shots. Ancelotti's challenge now is to make the second-half version of Brazil appear from the first minute. If Brazil can combine their individual quality with better structure and tempo, they remain dangerous. Ekumpadi. But if they continue to start slowly, teams will believe they can hurt them. So overall, Brazil 2-1 Japan was a dramatic comeback, but also a tactical warning. Japan showed how Brazil can be frustrated. Ancelotti showed how Brazil can adjust. Casemiro showed that experience still matters. Vinícius showed that space changes everything. Bruno Guimarães showed why he is becoming one of Brazil's most important creators. And Martinelli showed that knockout football often belongs to the player who is in the right place at the biggest moment. Brazil are through to the last 16, but if they want to go deep in this World Cup, this match should not be remembered only as a victory. It should be remembered as a lesson.
Thank you for listening to this tactical review. This was an AI voiceover audio review created from reading and analyzing multiple journalist and pundit reviews available online. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to watch more content like this, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel, The Square Cut. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next one.